Welcome, welcome, welcome. So thank you guys for coming so much. Devdutt Pattanaik is here tonight. The story of how Bob and I were introduced to him, after my Jivamukti teacher training, Bobby found a copy of his book, Jaya, on Audibles. And he started listening to it, and it's the story of the Mahabharata retold in the way that, to make it simpler so you understand it. And he said, oh, you really need to listen to this, Austin. It's going to really explain things to you that you don't understand. And so I said, well, you know, I can't sit and listen to an Audible. I said, can you get me a copy, a hard copy? I'm an old-fashioned kind of guy. I need a hard copy of the book so I can flip through it and underline things and write notes. So Bobby ordered me a copy of the book. And about a chapter into it, the first chapter, I was sucked into it. I was like, oh, so there's like a beginning to how we get to the Bhagavad Gita. And it really explained how we got to the middle of the book, which is what a lot of times yoga teachers focus on, is the Bhagavad Gita, but we don't really know the story of how we got to that place on the battlefield. And after I read the book, I wrote Mr. Pattanaik an email, and I said, oh, I just finished your book. I said, I'm buying more of your books. If ever you're in America, please come to New Jersey. We just opened up. Come to New Jersey, not New York, come to New Jersey. We just opened up a yoga studio, and I'd love to have you come and talk to the community here. And he said, oh, yes, I will come. I will be there. That was 2.5 years ago or something, right? And so we kept communicating. I started following him on Twitter. He would write something. I would retweet it. I would write something. He would acknowledge that I wrote something that he had written. And so there became this communication that was kind of marvelous because of technology, right? That never would have happened 30 years ago. Wouldn't have happened. I would have never really met him or been introduced to him. So I guess it was a month ago or 2 months ago, he said, oh, I'm going to be at Harvard and I'll come to New Jersey. And I said, you're booked. You're booked. So, and luckily it was at this moment in time that on February the 15th, it's our 2nd year anniversary here at Jivamukti Yoga, Jersey City. And I said, you will be here to help us celebrate going into our 3rd year. And I said, what a special treat to have you here. So tonight, we're going to have a wonderful lecture, Locating Yoga in Indian Culture Through Story, Ritual, and Myth. Remember, please turn off your cell phones. Pictures are fine after the lecture. And we'll have a book signing and a reception, so you actually have time to talk, have a slice of vegan cake, birthday cake, very good, from Peace Cafe. Is there anything else, Bob?
I think that's it. When I got Jaya, I just want to say one more thing about Jaya. The thing I love all that mythology and Lord of the Rings and all that stuff. And the thing I found most interesting about this whole thing was the good guys went to hell and the bad guys went to heaven. And
That's like life. Donald Trump goes to the White House, and Bernie Sanders.
keep all your questions, write them down, and then we'll try to get to everyone after the lecture.
Thank you guys so much, and what a wonderful turnout. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Can you all see me? Can you hear me clearly? Yeah? Okay, so I'll begin by explaining the word yoga. There are many ways of explaining it. So this is my way of explaining it. in order to understand the word yoga, you have to understand the word viyog. Viyog means separation. So when lovers are separated, they are called in viyog. There is a great separation and you weep. So Romeo and Juliet separated from each other. There is a viyog, separation. So when you say yog, union. That's all it means. In fact, the original meaning of the word basically meant uniting the horse to the cart, without which you can't take the cart forward. That's the only origin of the word. It's a very simple word. It's just putting things together. And you see, when you read the stories of India, let's first look at some stories from Greek mythology. So let's look at the Iliad. And the Iliad speaks of a hero called Achilles, who feels he's been greatly wronged. The story takes place during the Trojan War. The Greeks are fighting the Trojans. The Trojan prince has abducted the Greek princess. Not really abducted, but she has eloped. She's gone of her own free will. Helen has gone to Troy, and the Greeks want her back. And the Greek warlords sail across the sea. They fight a 10-year war, and in that war there is one hero called Achilles. And Achilles is fighting hard and everybody is impressed by him. And his concubine is taken away by the king of the Greeks called Agamemnon. For various reasons, lots of stories happening, but he's angry. He's so angry because he feels it's been unfair. People have been unfair to him. He refuses to fight the war. He is angry that he's been treated unfairly. This great hero has been treated unfairly. He refuses to fight the war. His friend Patroclus feels that that's not the way to be. You have to support your army. You have to fight back. And Patroclus wears Achilles' helmets and goes into battle, and he's killed by the Trojans, and then Achilles fights back. And the whole story goes, the details are not important, but it is the story of a hero. The word hero comes from Greek mythology, of a hero who has been wronged and is trying to achieve something. He wants to right a wrong. Or if you read Odyssey, it's of a hero who wants to go back home, and there are many obstacles that come in his path. And he wants to go home, but he's not able to achieve the destination because he's been blocked by many forces, and these forces are the gods. So when Greek heroism is always about a hero's journey to a destination. And that's what Greek mythology functions around. Your journey towards one destination. In life also has a destination. There's the concept of Elysium, the heaven of heroes. You have to do something extraordinary in your life. You live a very ordinary life, you will go to asphodel fields. But if you do something extraordinary, you will go to the Elysium fields. Special place for special people. If you're out of the ordinary. So you work very hard. The Olympic Games is about achievement. You have to be faster than others. You have to jump higher than others. You have to be stronger than others. It's a continuous race to be better than what you are. You are not limited. You break free. That's the Greek hero. He's continuously obstructed. Lots of obstacles, lots of blocks. But he fights through it. The Olympian gods sometimes act as cheerleaders, sometimes as troublemakers. Depending on their whims and fancies, they decide whether they want to support you, they want to oppose you. So if you read the Odyssey, Poseidon, the god of the sea, just does not let Odysseus go back home to his wife and child. For 10 years he wanders in the sea. So many forces working against him, but he strives on despite the gods. And you see this notion of individualism appearing, that whether the gods are for you or against you, you will achieve your goal. There is a goalpost called Elysium. Victory at the end of it. That's the Greek mythic structure. The idea of achievement. Across the river Styx, there are judges waiting. They will judge you. And based on whatever you have done in your life, they will decide whether you are fit for the ordinary lands, which is asphodel, or will you go to the extraordinary place called Elysium. That's the description of life. Very linear with a goalpost. When you read biblical narratives, slightly different picture emerges. The picture is of a tribe enslaved in miserable conditions until one day a prophet comes along and says, I will take you to the promised land, the land of milk and honey, where you live with freedom and dignity. But in order to get there, you have to make a covenant with God. You have to make a contract. You have to follow commandments, and you will reach the promised land, this great promised land. And so the journey is, again, it's a journey towards this promised land where all will be well for the entire tribe. It's not about an individual. It's about the whole collective group of people moving towards the promised land. And the struggle is of aligning with the rules. The biggest problem, to use modern language, that the prophet faces is non-compliance. Even when God gives the rules in writing, in stone, people can't follow it. Alignment is a problem. You know, the rule is just take as much food as you want, don't take more, but somebody will take an extra fistful of manna. Everything is provided for, but you don't trust. So although you have a contract with God, although you have the commandments, there's non-compliance. But the whole journey is you have the notion of the caring father who forgives you and says, okay, try again. And again you break the rules, and again he says, try again. Again you break the rules, again you try again. But there's the notion of the promised land. So these stories, so in Greek mythology, you see the individual. In Abrahamic mythology, you see the tribe, the collective. In Greek mythology, the gods are cruel. They block you. They don't let you get through. They don't let you become great. You have to fight them. And when you impress them by your opposition, they will even allow you to enter into their special heaven. In the Abrahamic traditions, it is God is a caring father. He knows you make a mistake and he keeps helping you. So you have a caring father, you have a cruel father. You have the individual, you have the tribe. When you read the biblical traditions, there's a reference to follow the rules, align, align, align. When you read Greek mythology, it's always about break the rules, break the records, challenge the system, be different. Be yourself. And you see, on one side there is the shepherd and the sheep. On the other side there is the goat, the individual goat. And you see these at loggerheads with each other, these two ideas. Now when you take these two stories and keep this in the background, it's very important to understand these two sets of stories because they define what we call very loosely Western culture. And then you approach India. You come towards India and you start seeing a very different set of stories. So you see the Ramayana, which is the green color book on that side. And there is the Mahabharata on the other side. These are the two epics which make India. These are the two epics. And you say that, and when you read them, you are looking for, is it like the Bible? Is there a promised land? Is there a prophet? Are there rules? You say, is it like Greek mythology? Are there gods? Is there individualism? Is there the river Styx? Is it about achievement? So you've got these questions in your head when you're approaching this book, especially because we have used the word hero so loosely. So there must be a hero to the story. And that, when you come with these templates, it creates confusion. Because when you read the Ramayana, Ramayana is a story of a character called Ram. And you read him, and he's obsessed with rules. It's all about alignment, alignment, alignment. He's called Maryada Purushottam Ram. He who always follows the rules. Even when the rules are unfair, he'll follow the rules. He follows the rules. For him, father is always kind, even when the father says, go and live in the forest for 14 years. Give up your inheritance. He's saying, no, father is always kind. You have to follow the rules. And you say, hey, this sounds like a biblical prophet who always aligns with the rules. So you've got the Ramayana on one side. And then the book Jaya, which was mentioned earlier, which is the Mahabharata. You read the book, and there's a character called Krishna. That's Krishna, who always breaks the rules. He breaks the rules, he challenges the system, he refuses to align. And that sounds like the Greek hero. In fact, he kills his own maternal uncle, who's like a father figure, just like the Greek heroes who kill their fathers or foster fathers. And you're like, that's Greek. So is Indian stories like the Bible stories, or is it like the Greek stories? And what's the Indian answer? The Indian head shake. This and that. Not this or that. Now, what does that do? So this is also, so where does this come from? Why are both the stories there? So you have the Ramayana over here and the Mahabharata over here. There is a character called, I think this is very precarious. Should we just keep it? I'm not touching it. So that's the Ramayana. This is very much, when you read the book, it's almost biblical in its precision. It's obsessed with following the rules. When you read the Mahabharata, it's about breaking the rules. And then it gets more complicated, because you'll say, then who is better? Is it better to be like Ram, or is it better to be like Krishna? So when you read this Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, these two words are used, Ram, Krishna. And the Indian answer is, well, they are not two different people. They are the same people in different situations. Now, explain this to someone. They are not they're same, but different. How do you explain this to someone? Because, so you have got Ram, you have got Krishna. His story is in the Ramayana. This is the Mahabharata. This looks very Greek, rule positive. This is very biblical in its structure. This is biblical in structure. This is Greek in its structure, rule negative. When you combine the two, it becomes Vishnu. Because this is context 1, this is context 2. In one context, when the father is kind, you follow the rules. In another context, when the father is cruel, you break the rules. So everything is decided by the context. The word for context in Sanskrit is yuga. Yuga 1, yuga 2, different yugas, different context. There is a different avatar. Avatar 1, Avatar 2. What does avatar mean? Avatar means he who descends. Avatar is to descend from the infinite to the finite. So suddenly, infinite, immortal, finite, mortal. So in one life, I am Ram, in the next life, I am Krishna. How can that happen? Because, well, death is not a full stop, it's a comma. Because the fundamental principle is rebirth. So what looks fragmented has been united through rebirth. To unite is yoga. To see everything as part of one thing. Fragmentation is viyoga, separation. In our lives, there is fragmentation. So the stories in the epics is the characters are fragmented all the time. They are fragmented between doing the right thing, there is the morals, there are ethical dilemmas, there are moral dilemmas. Should I fight for my property because someone has snatched it from me? But if I fight someone for property, I will end up killing my own relatives. Is that right? This ethical dilemmas, moral dilemmas is fragmentation. You're fragmented, torn within yourself, broken into little pieces. Viyoga, separation. Yoga binds you. So when you read the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, every character is fragmented except the avatars. They are not fragmented. Therefore, they are not Greek heroes. The hero goes through a transformation. Ram and Krishna don't. So we have to understand this concept. When we use the word yoga, to unite, to break away from fragmentation. That's the essential idea. So how does this idea emerge from a textual perspective? If you look at this text for a long time, the idea exists even before the word. You see, a meaning always exists before a word comes into being. So let me give you a historical perspective. So roughly, if you look at the history of India as a simple way of remembering, you can argue forever, but a simple way of remembering is if we are in 2000 AD, you go to 2000 BC, it's a simple way of remembering. I'm not getting into the details of it, but just broadly, this is an easy way of remembering. And this midpoint is 0. This is broadly called the Vedic period, and this is called the Puranic period. What does it basically mean is this is where the stories came into the picture. The stories, the symbols, the rituals that we today associate with Hinduism comes from this period. It may have existed before, but we don't know. We don't have evidence of it. What we do know is that the temples started being built, the stories started being told, they were narrated, all these images start appearing at this time. But the very same ideas are found in this, but they are found in far more abstract. Here they are far more concrete, more tangible. They're extremely tangible. I can see it, I can feel it. The stories are very powerful. So when I tell you the story, now what happened between these two things? What was the major event that took place that demanded this transformation? A revolution took place in this, somewhere in the middle. A major thought came in which sort of ruptured and makes people think. Now the technical word for it is Shramana. But for popular understanding, we shall use the word Buddhism. What this brought in is a monastic tradition. A monastic tradition, which basically said desire, suffering. And therefore it spoke about going inward journeys. They focused a lot on the inward journey. It was all inward journey. This is where suddenly the word dhyana comes into the picture. So shutting your eyes, meditating, all these words started becoming popular. They were there in esoteric traditions. In a way, I would always equate this with the internet. How internet has made knowledge accessible to all. Before this, all these knowledge practices were known in pockets. Suddenly it was made accessible to people. He was coming and talking. So people shutting their eyes. Now what is happening is, this is the hermit tradition. The hermit is an individualist. He's going and withdrawing and going inside. So you're fragmented. When you're fragmented, you unite. Now what? Now what do you do? Something has to change, because now you are all inwards. Suddenly, the Puranic revolution takes place, because the stories tell you something very different. So suddenly you have gone inward. The stories challenge this and say, can you re-begin your outward journey? So now look at the Ramayana and the Mahabharata start to be, they were older stories, but they started being institutionalized, because both of these are property disputes. They are talking about property. There's nothing subtle and spiritual over here. Over here, this is the land, the throne of Ayodhya. People are fighting over property. So property is important. This is mine. This is now talking about society. The movement from inward has now started moving outward. And the answer is, one group of people are saying, hey, you're fragmented, go and meditate and withdraw in. And a counterforce emerges. If everybody goes inwards, what happens? If all the plants go within and they become buds, there will be no pollination. No fruit will emerge. The bud has to open up. Otherwise, pollination won't take place. There will be no fertilization. Fruits won't emerge. So the traditions are now talking a different language. They start using the word darshan. Look. So if Buddhism was about dhyana, shut your eyes, the Puranic traditions are saying open your eyes, look. Darshan, look at the other, look at the other. And the word for other is para. Para, look at the other. And suddenly, Jiva looks at the para. I look at the other. I look at you. The other becomes important. What are you looking at is a reflection of who you are. The more you appreciate the other, the more you appreciate yourself. And suddenly these stories are talking about the relationships. Husband, wives, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts. If you read the Ramayana, it's all about family. How do you describe a family? Who is a stranger? Who shall inherit your property? Why do you give it to your son and not to a stranger? Why should he be a blood relative? Who decided he is family, and how did you decide he is not family? Who is making these rules up? Suddenly, Jiva and Para, the relationship of the self and the other. So if Dhyan was about self, Darshan was about the other. And they were complementing each other. And they're continuously complementing each other. So you move from the inward journey to the outward journey. Because you move from a fragmented state, you united. This would be a linear journey. The story is over. But the story continues, and you go, having united yourself, you deal with the fragmented other. So you go and you come out. So if this is the beginning, Adi means the beginning. Adi is the beginning, primal. This is Samadhi. You take the journey and go back where you started from. Very much like the hero's journey, but very different in a way. Because over here, you are wiser. From the finite, you have experienced the infinite. And when you are, how do you deal with people who have less knowledge than you? Do you look down upon them? Or do you uplift them? Or you let them be? That's the conversation that will happen over here. This is the world of darshan. This is the world of dhyana. It's a journey. How do you deal with the other? When you are educated, how do you deal with the uneducated? Do you say that, he knows nothing? And do you indulge and feel superior? Or do you say, oh, he knows nothing, let me help him out. But what if he doesn't want to learn from you? and he looks at you as a fool, do you get offended or do you indulge him? How do you, imagine you're dealing with a child and the child looks at you and thinks that you are the biggest idiot around. Do you get angry with the child because you have a PhD thesis? But the child says, you know nothing. And you're like, yeah, I know nothing. And you play act with the child. You play act with the child. That is Leela. To play. To go with the flow demanded by the other. Because you don't need to control them. Because in your wisdom you have realized you can control no one. You don't have a desire to control. And you realize everybody who desires to control is fragmented. So you let it be. Because no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you try to control, life has its own plans for you. No flower can control which bee is going to pollinate it. You just hope one bee will come and pollinate me. And you give out good fragrances out, all the pheromones you want. And you hope. There is no guarantee, but there are fruits produced every year. It's just that you may not be the fruit. But it will happen. And this is the philosophical journey that these stories are talking about. So the Ramayana and Mahabharata look different and strange stories because we don't understand the skeleton which shapes them. You see, when you read, let's go back to the history chart. The first Vedic verse, if you just Google Rig Veda 1.1.1, this is, Rig Veda is the oldest text available to us. First mandala is the first book. There are 1,000 hymns which are arranged in 10 chapters. In each chapter there are many poetries or suktas. So first book, first poetry, first verse. Just Google it and you will see a word which will appear in that. The word that appears in it is yagna. This is the word that will appear in it. And what does this word mean? And we don't realize that it is, this word is the word from which two concepts emerged. One is karma. Well, three concepts if you want to say it. Yoga, dharma. All of this comes from this one major ritual. This is the fundamental ritual. You can call it a Hindu ritual, but that's not quite accurate because the people who wrote these hymns didn't know words like Hinduism. Right? They're our words. 4,000 years later, we are using these words. What did they use? They had no concept of nation state, democracy, republic, nothing. They just observed and they were communicating whatever they could experience. They used, why did they use this word yagna? Now, we make this word very complicated, but that is a ritual that you will see in all the epics. All this Ramayana, Mahabharata is reference to yagna. It's a very simple ritual. The person who conducts it is called a yajamana. Y-A-J-A, yajaman. He would light a fire and he would invoke a deity, Devata. He would make an offering and say swaha. You must have heard this word a lot. Swaha basically means, this is mine, now it is yours. I am giving this to you. What is mine, I give it to you. It just means giving. He gives swaha and he expects tathastu. He wants something in exchange. So the tragedy of this word yagna is in the 19th century, 18th century, German philosophers translated it to mean sacrifice. Now these men had never conducted the ritual or visited India. They sat in Germany and decided this is a sacrifice. Now a sacrifice means you give, it's about giving up something. It has a different meaning, connotation. There's another word for sacrifice. That's not the wrong meaning. Look at this carefully. He gives in order to get. Not take. It's not give and take. Give and take is a contract. Give and take is a contract. Give, don't expect, sacrifice. I give. I don't want anything. Or I feel hurt. Sacrifices, it hurts you because you really want something. Take. I take. Here you're giving to get. You hope to get. The same is, now look at this ritual. Nowadays people perform a puja. And it's exactly the same principle. You go and give, make an offering, bhog chadhao they will say, give an offering. At the end of it you do falastuti. Falastuti is seeking the fruit of your labor. In other words, this is what I want from you. You are expecting a phala, fruit, seed. I have made this offering. It's an exchange. Yagna is an exchange. Now, why is this important? It sounds simple, exchange, exchange. Why is the first Vedic verse, 1.1.1, talking about exchange, exchange, exchange? It sounds like the stock market. Like I call this is the investor. This is his investment. This is the investee. Tathastu is the return on investment. Now it sounds, when I use this, people get like, oh my God, how can it's business? This cannot be spirituality. This cannot be yoga. Right? We have these notions because we are coming from the hermit traditions. This is the hermit tradition. But remember, I'm talking about householder traditions, the Puranas. These are householder. What is the difference between the hermit and the householder? The hermit is in dhyana. Householder is doing darshan. He's looking at the other. And when you're looking at the other, what do you see? And you see that everybody is hungry. All living creatures are hungry. The plant, why does the plant grow? Because it is hungry for sunlight. Why does it have roots? Because it is hungry for water. Why do birds move? They're looking for pastures and prey. They're not moving for fun. Oh, let's take a morning walk. It is going towards food. It is going towards water. What is the difference between the animate and the inanimate? What is the difference between a rock and a tree and a bird? This has no hunger, ajiva, it has no life. This is sajiva. Life means hunger. All living creatures, if you are alive, you are hungry. You are hungry for something. What do you do when you see someone who is hungry? When you do darshan of hunger, you feed them. Because only human beings have the ability to feed others. Plants and animals don't do that. At best, they will do it for young creatures, their own babies. A bird will take care of its little baby, but doesn't expect the baby to feed it itself later. I can feed you because I can expect you to feed me. The ability to feed and the expectation that you will feed me, both are human. They are indicators of how human beings function. It's the KPI of humanity. Those who understand business language. That is why yajna is important. You read, there's a wonderful book called Sapiens by, it's just released recently, Sapiens by Noah Harari. And it speaks about imagination, and human beings have the ability to exchange. Animals, only some species of animals exchange. There's a variety of bats and there are chimpanzees, but a chimpanzee can exchange only with chimpanzees it knows, familiar with. It cannot do with all chimpanzees, only the chimpanzees within its troop. We can exchange. This is what makes us human. That is why we have created civilization. Civilization revolves around exchange. I do something for you. I expect you will do something for me. If I'm in the middle of the street and I fall down, I expect people around me to help me. And if they don't help me, I will say, what kind of a place? Nobody came to my rescue. Because I can imagine humans helping me. No animal expects to be helped. They have to take care of themselves. No animal cries for help. It fights and survives or dies. And that is why if you're trying to rescue, if you see those wonderful National Geographic videos where you're trying to help an animal which is in distress, you have to be very careful. Because the animal doesn't understand you're trying to help it. It can bite your hand off. You have to be very gentle because it doesn't get it. You may want to help, but doesn't understand, it doesn't expect. And therefore it can bite you. You talk to any animal, those who take care of animals and other things, they will tell you that you have to recognize it's an animal. It might hurt you. You may want to be kind, it doesn't recognize kindness. It's a very interesting thing. Only human beings expect, we want people to do things for us. Because we are also capable of doing things for others. The ritual of yajna captures this idea. It captures this idea. I can give and I can expect. I can give and I can expect. And the tragedy is in this space, right? Because when I don't get what I want, what do? I stop giving. I shut down. I don't want to give. Why should I give if I'm not getting anything in this relationship? And the rituals are designed around you go to a temple and you have the image, a rock in front of you, and told you pray and you give and you expect. And suddenly you're being trained because you know it's a rock out there, it's an idol, right? And you're being trained. Because the rock will just watch you and 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 watch you. It will not do anything for you, but suddenly you will be able to handle it. Because humans perhaps can give a little bit more. It's dealing with the animate. Who is the Devata? It is the other in our relationships, and this is the self. Jiva Atma, me, Paratma, you. I feed you and I hope you will feed me. I do your darshan. I hope you do my darshan. how do I, when I figure this out, Viyog is when there is separation of the two. I stop giving, I shut down from you, I withdraw from you. The self gives, get is a question mark, other. When I don't get from the other, what do? I shut down, Viyog. When I don't shut down, I'm in yoga. This is yajna. And suddenly you realize yajna teaches us about yoga. And when people say, do dharma, do dharma, do dharma, what are they saying? You keep feeding, you keep feeding, you keep feeding. Somebody else will feed you. Maybe not the person in front. And that's a very difficult thing to digest because we want control, right? I want the other to give me. So I turn give into take. I will take it. And the moment you take it, it stops being yajna. Then it's not yajna anymore. Because I'm trying to control the ecosystem. And that's what the Ramayana and Mahabharata are dealing with. They're continuously dealing. So let me give you an example. So Krishna establishes this great war is being fought. So let's look at the famous Bhagavad Gita. So the Mahabharata is a very simple story. On one side there are 100 princes, the Kauravas. On the other side there are 5 princes, the Pandavas. They're standing on a battlefield, they have 11 armies, they have 7 armies. Clearly, might, this is where the might is. They are the strong. Now in the jungle, might is right. The strong survive or the smart will survive. Either you have to be strong or you have to be smart. There is no one who takes care of the weak. If a bird breaks its wings, it will die. So in a herd of deer, who gets killed? The weakest. In a pack of wolves, who get the largest share of the hunt? The strongest. The word for this law of the jungle, reverse it. Is it possible to imagine a world where the might takes care of the meek? Is it possible to imagine a world where the helpless are helped by the strong and the smart? I can imagine that world. In other words, you don't have to look for your food. I will feed you. The opposite of the jungle is what is called, when we say nature, might is right. What is human culture? The opposite. Survival of the fittest, jungle. What is culture? What is the definition? Imagined culture, where even the unfit can thrive, where even the helpless are taken care of. When this group is fighting this group, is it jungle or civilization? They're taking away their property. They are brutally taking away all the property. Is this civilization or jungle disguised as civilization? Therefore, adharma. You are not behaving like a human being. You are worse than an animal. You are taking what belongs to the weak. You don't need it, but you're taking it for the weak. This is adharma. This is viyoga, separation. I have to restore the balance. So the battle is not about who is right and who is wrong. It is this. How do I reverse it? So the battle is happening, but it is a complex battle because the battle is not about property. It's about how you think. It has to do with the thinking process. Because the Bhagavad Gita begins with one of the princes over here called Arjun. He looks at the other side. He's there ready to do battle because it's his property. And he suddenly says, oh my God, they are my relatives, they are my friends. How can I kill my relatives for a piece of property? And that's a very overwhelming question. Because what he's basically saying, if they were not my relatives, I have no problem killing them. That's what he's saying. And Krishna is looking at that. You have not understood the purpose. It's not inappropriate. Are you saying it's appropriate to fight someone if they are not your relatives? On what basis do you decide who is your relative? How did you decide what is yours and what is not yours? On what basis did you make this division? Where is your separation coming from? And the Bhagavad Gita is dealing with that because everyone ultimately, if this is infinite, a fragment of the infinite, this is self, this is the other. If this is the Pandavas, this is the Kauravas. If this is Arjuna, this is Duryodhan. If you read the Ramayana, if this is Ram, this is Ravan. Everybody is a piece of infinity. Everybody is a piece of infinity. What is the difference? Some are not able to recognize that they are capable of feeding the hungry. They feel they have to only feed themselves. They are so overwhelmed by their own hunger that they don't look at others. And that's what the Bhagavad Gita is focusing on. Our fears and what is hunger? Hunger is our insecurities that we are trying to compensate for. So the plant is hungry for sunlight and water. Animals are hungry for fodder, for the plant, for a prey or for pasture. What are humans hungry for? We are hungry for meaning. We are seeking meaning in our lives. How do I get meaning? And humans have found a very simple method through property. So there's a very famous story in the Mahabharata which will explain this. The Pandavas and the Kauravas both go to Krishna and they say, we are going to fight a war. We are going to kill each other over a piece of land. But you have to support us. And Krishna, and both of them ask for Krishna's support. And Krishna says, okay, I can divide myself, both of y'all are dear to me. So I'll divide myself into two parts. My army with this fully equipped army on one side, all my resources on one side, on the other side only me. Choose. Do you want what I am, or do you want what I have? Do you want what I am, or do you want what I have? What do you think the choice was? What is measurable? What can you measure? All that you have. I can measure what you have. I can never measure what you are. Although psychologists have been trying very hard to measure us. You know, it's like going to a school and you are measured on the basis of your grades, right? That's how society values you. A grade student, B grade, C grade. Or which university do you go to? Ivy League? Your value is based on what you have. The more wealth you have, the more knowledge you have, the more property you have, the more beauty you have, you are regarded as greater. That is the nature of society. Not what I am. So we seek property through possessions, what I have. So what happens when two people meet? There is me and mine, you and yours. So how does yajna take place? I can give what is mine to you and I expect what is yours to me. This is yajna. But when I do darshan of who you are, I am, you are. This, when I discover, it is yoga. When I see you for what you are, and when I see your fears, your hunger, your insecurity, and I can handle it. This is not measurable. So how is this explained using images? This is the fundamental idea. When you say Jivamukti, when I'm hearing this word, I was looking at Jivamukti, Jivamukti, Jivamukti. Where there is Jiva, you're talking about hunger and fear. Hunger and fear drives all of us, every living creature. What makes human beings special is that we can imagine, we have imagination. So we can imagine tomorrow's hunger, day after tomorrow's hunger, 100 years later. You see, a deer can get frightened when it sees a tiger, smells a tiger, or hears a tiger. We can imagine a tiger all the time. And therefore we live in extremely amplified fears. Mukti is freedom. Freedom from these fears. How do I get freedom from these fears? By yoga, by connecting and recognizing fear everywhere. When I see the other and I see insecurities in every living creature, I calm down. He's as scared of me as I am of him. And suddenly, strangers are not frightening anymore. The other is not frightening anymore. You see, what happens when a bird meets another bird? Yeah? What happens when a bird meets another bird? It says, is that a predator? Will it eat me? Think of yourself going to a party where you'd recognize no one. And this bird is not flying up there. Is that a prey? Can I eat him? Is that a rival? Will it steal my food or my mate? Competition. Is that a mate? Can we produce babies together? Can it help me outsmart death? These are the 4 questions. You can talk to any neurobiologist. These are the 4 questions that are asked. As long as you're asking these questions, when animals ask it, it is fine. That is their nature. When humans ask this, we have not outgrown our animal instinct. What humans can ask is, what is his hunger? Can I satisfy that hunger? How do I deal when he doesn't accept my offering? How do I deal with the fact that, what if he doesn't accept what I give? What if he doesn't return the favor? These are the questions that we ask. Will I allow it? Or will I begrudge it and be angry and keep accounts? Yajna will start, because yajna begins with expectation of what I will get. But wisdom is, when you outgrow those expectations, it's fine if I don't get it. It is fine if he doesn't receive it, because I am invoking him to the yajna. Remember, yajna, you are calling the deity. The deity has not come of his own free will. You have said, please come, I'm going to feed you, and after feeding him, you'll say, okay, now give me something in exchange. There's no obligation on the part of the other to give you anything. There is no obligation. You are assuming obligation. And that's a tough thing, right? Because we just expect, I've done so much for you, surely you should. And therefore you have words like detached action, to protect ourselves from hurt and pain. Or actions like, do your duty, don't expect results. Because we want to protect ourselves from hurt and pain. This is the story of darshan. These are the gods opening their eyes and talking to us. I will explain this, and I'll conclude this, because there is a beautiful Nataraj statue out on the other room. You see the story, I will tell you the story of the Nataraj statue, of how it happens, and you'll see how the image talks to you. So once upon a time, there were a bunch of priests performing the yajna. They were performing the sacrifice when Shiva walked past. And Shiva was so beautiful. And he was Digambara, he was naked ascetic, he was a naked man walking across. The men who were performing this ritual, their wives got enchanted by this beautiful man walking across and started chasing him. So naturally the priests, the Brahmins who were conducting the ritual got very upset and said, what is going on? And they decided to use this yajna to create magical beings. They created a tiger, a serpent, and a goblin, and said, go, kill this creature. So basically they invoked the gods, and in exchange got from the gods these magical things. A tiger, a snake, and a goblin. And they said, destroy this thing. And when the tiger came, Shiva just took the tiger, flayed it alive, and took the skin and wrapped it around his body. And then he took the serpent and picked it up and put it around his neck. And the goblin, he just hit him hard and started dancing on his back. And he did a very particular position. So this is Shiva, And he does something very interesting. If you look at the pose, do you remember what he does? He has a hand like this. This means abhaya. Abhaya. Bhaya means fear. Don't be afraid. So here, these are the guys who are attacking him, and he is telling them, don't be afraid. Afraid of what? His leg, this is his position, right? He's pointing his left. So his right arm is saying, don't be afraid. The left arm is going there and saying, look, 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 don't be afraid of what? And he's pointing to his left foot. Don't be afraid of the left foot. What is happening? His left foot, he's rotating it in a circle. He's rotating it. Don't be afraid of this world where everything is changing. Fear is because you can't control it, right? Your wife's emotions you can't control. They suddenly see another handsome man and they chase him, and you are afraid and angry. And because you can't do anything to your wives, you want to attack me. I am the temptation you want to get rid of. You want to get rid of me because then they will be faithful to you rather than working on yourselves. No, the problem is out there. He is standing on one foot. That's why it's called ekapada. He who stands on one foot. And this, the right foot. What's so special about the right foot? If you look at the human body, the left side is where the heart is beating all the time. It is the side of nature, change, matter. And the right side, there's no heart on this side, right? Is representative of the mind, which can be stilled. So mind and matter, mind and matter, mind and matter. Your mind, still your mind, even though the world is continuously changing. This is Prakriti, nature. This is the goddess. This is Purusha, the God. You cannot control nature. You can only control your mind. You can't stop beautiful men from walking past. They will keep coming. How many of them will you kill with the tigers and the serpents and the goblins? Who are you looking at? See, on the one side, he's got these extra arms. He has got a fire burning, but this is a very interesting fire. This is a fire which is created without fuel. It doesn't need fuel. It is tapa. Normally, fire needs fuel. The fuel comes to an end, the fire comes to an end. This is fire without fuel. It is the light of knowledge. And the other side, you have the rattle drum. The rattle drum, I don't know how many of you all have seen it. In India, the rattle drum is used to control monkeys. When the monkey comes, you play the rattle drum, so the monkey gets enchanted by the rattle drum. These are instruments. When you still the mind, wisdom will dawn. So he's using mudras to communicate an idea. I think all the chanting, you're not getting it through cognitive method. When I'm explaining it to you, you're not explaining it. So I'm using a non-cognitive method of communication. Through dance, I'm communicating the same idea. That the world is changing, still your mind, see the fire of wisdom. And you have his hair moving in every direction. And in his hair, he has caught the river. When you have wisdom, even the river can be held in the locks of your hair. Which means you're not shaken by this world. And what is this world of matter? This is the world of fear. Fear and wisdom. The fear fragments, wisdom unites. That's the journey. You move from the fragmented to the united and return to the world of the fragmented. Deal with the others, deal with your wives, deal with your children. That's the whole narrative. The yagna, which is supposed to give you wisdom, they have turned it into a weapon of power because they are still not overcome their fears. Why are you conducting the yagna? Why are you feeding the other? Because you want something? Because you have not yet outgrown your fear. That's yoga. That is locating yoga in Hindu stories. And that's what I've done for you all today. I have tried to explain the concept called yoga using Ramayana, Mahabharata, which are stories. I have tried to explain it using symbols. So there's the symbol. There's the ritual. And of course, the stories of Ram and Krishna. That's what the epics are about. Simple? Thank you. Thank you so much. Can I get some water?
So now we have time for questions.
Can I get some water?
Oh, some water, yes. Hold on.
Hey, Barbara, can you go to the other room and grab a bottle of water?
Well, I'll get you some bottles of water. Does anybody have a question on this side of the room?
Hey Devdutt, thanks for the wonderful lecture. So you talked about yoga. Can you just talk about the three types of yoga that I generally mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, like karma yoga, jnana yoga, and bhakti yoga?
So there are three yogas. So let's just take a page. So you have yoga, karma, then you have bhakti, jnana. This is behavioral, doing. This is feeling. This is knowing. So this is your hand, this is your heart, this is your head. This is non-negotiable. Because in order to live, you have to eat. Therefore, he begins by talking about yagna and yoga. Exchange and connection with the other. This is non-negotiable. Remember, this is in the post-Buddhist. It's not a hermit tradition. These are the householder traditions. He says you have to do darshan, you have to deal with people, you have to exchange, you have to connect with other people. Then he talks of bhakti. The problem with the word bhakti is its English translation, because you have translated it as devotion. Devotion has a sense, has a feudal thing about it. Master and servant. It's the English word has a problem. It can be translated as affection. Replace the word devotion with affection, and it has a wider meaning. It's not power. The moment you use devotion, I've seen people using bhakti in this very feudal way, master, servant, and I'm like, yeah, this is not devotion at all. It serves many people well. Please be my devotee. You will find affection takes away the power equation. There's no power. It's love. Anurag, in Hindi the word for it is anurag. Affection. Affection, therefore the description is so varied. The affection of the parent for the child for the parent, friends, sakha bhava, master, servant, any kind of relationship. You decide the relationship. If there is affection in the relationship, there is bhakti in the relationship. So it is not servile. So I personally never use the word devotion. This is a problem. It's like sacrifice for yagna. The English word distorts our understanding of the meaning. Bhakti is affection. He is seeing this soldier who is terrified of going to... It's like, imagine a child afraid of going to give his exams. What do you tell the child? Just walking into the examination hall and getting scared. Oh my God, I can't give the exam. I'm going to fail. I will not pass. I will not do well. What does a parent do? You motivate the child and say, don't worry. I'm there. You have prepared. If nothing happens, I'm there for you. I'm there for you. That's exactly what Krishna does in the battlefield. I'll be there. I'll take care of everything. If things don't work out, I'll solve it. You just go and do it. Having taken away his anxiety, this is where the emotions and anxiety are dealt with. He goes into the intellectual space. This is where he becomes the philosopher. And this is where he uses words like gunas. And he talks about identity. How do you define who you are? Everybody is different. There's no two creatures which are the same. Whether you like it or not, how you say things, 3 different people will receive it differently. He talks about diversity and identity over here. And how we define ourselves through property. This notion of property is a very important concept in India. He doesn't talk of this intellectual part at the beginning. This is the journey. So these are 3 types of yogas. You have to exchange, you have to connect. You must have, can you evoke affection? And can you understand what's going on in the yagna? Everything is a yagna. Because all human relationships are a yagna. The giving and the expectations of receiving. Yeah? That's the 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. Sorry, just 1 minute. You know why 18 is so important? Anybody has read about it? The human body if you read the Bhagavad Gita, it tells the human body has 9 doors. Navadvara. So, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 1 mouth, 1 anus, and 1 genital opening. So this is the vulva or the penis. 9. So in a yagna, there is 9. This is me, 9 of yours. 18 is the yagna yoga. Therefore 18 is always told. 18, 18, 18. So the Mahabharata has 18 chapters. The Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters. The war has 18 armies. 11 on one side, 7 on the other. They fight for 18 days. So they are using these codes. The book is all full of these codes trying to explain the same idea. Yeah.
The question is, you deviated a bit when you were talking about the question of Arjuna. Mm-hmm. But the answer of Krishna, That was not very clear. That when Krishna, in one of your articles, you said the question which made you think was Arjuna is saying, "This is me too." But then, what is the Krishna's answer? Fight and kill everybody? I mean, how do you define the answer?
Well, the answer is fight and kill them. There is no doubt about it. Let's not take that away. You see, if you don't kill them, let's go reverse. You see, violence is a very complex idea. Where is the 10 and 8? What will happen if they don't fight? They have to build a city again. How did they build the city? They burnt a forest, killed all the animals in the forest, and built a city. This city has been usurped by the Kauravas. So they have to build another city. So another forest has to be burnt. More animals have to die. Why should those animals be killed to indulge this greed? Is it okay? The fact is, as long as there's life, you will kill. So, since this is a very inanimate ajiva is the 5 elements. They are never hungry. The wind is never hungry. The earth is not hungry. Hunger comes with, you see it in plants are hungry. Plants eat inanimate objects. They eat the earth, they eat water, they eat sunlight, and they turn it. Animals eat plants. Some animals eat, there are even some animals which eat animals. Here there is no protest. So nature survives. Life feeds on life. Now humans come along. What do humans eat? Life, 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 life. No, this is not life. You are going to kill. The question is, that's why when the forest is being turned into the field, this is an important theme in Indian thought. Forest, field, nature, culture. This is violence. This is also violence, but this is instinct. This violence is for property. As long as you have the desire for property, you will be violent. Only the sage who doesn't desire any property is non-violent. But then he is inside. The moment he has to feed the other, somebody has to die. Therefore, not the word sacrifice. The moment I have to feed you, I have to make a field. The moment I make a field, I'm going to burn a forest. This is from the Sama Veda. This is the fundamental division of Indian thought. It is the existential crisis. Will you burn the forest to build a field? If you want a field, you have to burn the forest. Why are you burning the field? Because when you have the field, you say, this is mine, you get meaning. Artha milta hai.
But then all the sages lived in the forest.
You can also be a sage. That's the whole idea. That's a valid option. Can you? That's what, look at what Arjun says. I will give up this battle, I will go begging for food. He is really saying, I'll become a hermit. And Krishna says, and so the other doesn't matter, only you matter, is it? What a noble soul you are. The other doesn't matter. That's why para atma, parameshwara, para, the other. Does the other matter at all?
Well, I mean, can you talk a little bit about the concept of ahimsa with yoga and how that plays into what you're talking about with violence, nature, and culture?
This is why are you doing what you are doing is most important question. Why are you killing is more important than the fact of killing. Not the act of killing. For example, I can decide not to talk to you and tell everyone to boycott you. Is that himsa? That is violence, it's psychological violence. We have reduced violence to physical violence. I can psychologically boycott you, and that's not violence. Violence is at every level. Physical violence, emotional violence, intellectual violence. Violence is when there is a vast difference between violence and violation. What's the difference between violence and violation? Can animals violate? Animals are incapable of violation. They will not get it. Violation has an intellectual or mental component to it. This is mine. Ahimsa is do not violate. The intention. Where are you coming from? So there is the story of there is a dove and a hawk is chasing the dove. A king sees this and says, I will save the dove. The hawk asks the king, so what will I eat now? And the king says, eat another dove. He says, that's not fair. To save this dove, why should another dove die? Then he says, eat a rat. He said, to save the dove, why should the rat die? So finally the king says, eat me. And the hawk asks, how long will I eat you? One day you will go away. I will go back and catch the dove. Now why is the hawk killing? It is not killing because it is killing because it is its nature. It is satisfying its hunger for survival. Human action revolves around violence to feed my sense of meaninglessness. That is violence. That is himsa. So it's not about the act of killing. The fact that you are living in a city means vast amounts of birds, animals, nature is being destroyed. But the day your hunger for meaning, that more property, I am more meaningful, more property, so more forests will be destroyed. That is violence. Because now you are feeding an insatiable hunger for meaning. So it has to be not taken literally. It has to be taken in the sense of what it is saying. I can be violent, and insult is also violence. I violate you through words to give myself feel power. I can exclude you. I can dominate you. I can oppress you. All acts of violence, but I'm vegetarian. Oh, in India this happens all the time. Because we have reduced everything to the literal, and we are not seeing the metaphorical, the emotional violence, the intellectual violence, the idea of violence. That is why they are talking about these stories. Look at this. In the Mahabharata, when Pandavas they want to build a city, Krishna says, burn the forest. I said, oh, how can I burn the forest? It's a greenfield project. And Krishna says, then don't expect to be a king. You want to be a kingdom? Burn the forest. He says, but karma. He says, yeah. No free lunch. You want to be king? Burn the forest. And in the forest, they kill all the animals except the serpents. And the serpents come back to take the revenge 3 generations later. That's the price you pay. You don't want to pay the price, then sit and do dhyana. Don't do darshan. Withdraw into this isolated, alone. I don't want to deal with people. Therefore, the sage is not hungry for food. He doesn't. If you read the scriptures, they'll say he meditates to the point that he can live off the air, which means he's not eating the animate. He's eating the inanimate, which means he's hurting no one. So they have extrapolated the concept of hunger. He's outgrown hunger to the point that he eats air. It's the reverse. So the idea is very simple. Really, I mean, there are so many ideas you can just, so it is this. Where there is hunger, there is food. Where there is food, there is violence. Where there is violence, there is karma. That is consequences. Consequences create circumstances. So you live in circumstances, hunger. If you stop being violent, you don't need food, no hunger, no karma. Possible? Hunger. And then comes the question, whose hunger? The hermit says, my hunger matters. The householder said, the other's hunger matters. And that's the tension in our lives. Whose hunger do I care for? So when you read, you hear images of Shiva, Vishnu, and you never worship Brahma really. And it's a question that people ask. Brahma has a son called Indra, and he has all the creatures of the world belong to Brahma. So whether it's the Asuras, the Devas, the Yakshas, all the creatures who are hungry, he is the creator of hunger, destroyer of hunger. Preserver of hunger. Now think about it. What is he saying? How do you preserve hunger? Through exchange. Whose hunger are you concerned about? Here he's saying my hunger. Here he's saying no one's hunger. He's saying your hunger.
There's an image of Vishnu and Shiva as one. what does that actually mean?
This, you see, that's why Shiva is always shown as, the stories of Shiva are always him getting married. Shiva is never worshipped alone, he's worshipped as Shakti, with Shakti. She's forcing him to look at other people's hunger. You may not be hungry, but the other is hungry. So hermit, householder. And this is the common man. So Brahma is me. I can either become this and move towards this, or become this and move towards this. So Shiva says, outgrow hunger. Vishnu says, feed the other and outgrow your hunger. Therefore, the stories of avatars are over here. He's engaging with the world. That's how the stories are designed. Whose hunger are you looking at? That is the most critical question. Remember, these were all householder traditions. The stories came from the householder traditions, not the hermit. The tragedy is most of the interpreters of these myths in the last 100 years are all hermits. Therefore, the language is very different. But now people are re-questioning and re-looking at the books, and the last 10-15 years people are challenging these notions. How do you locate the Ramayana and Mahabharata? It's all about property dispute. And people say, how property? Why is property important? Because through property, human beings, we give ourselves meaning, right? Right to property is the first fundamental right, right? The right to property. It's my property. Mine. So this is Indian mythology 101.
Next question.
Hi. The Greek heroes, the journey that you're talking about, is more like in India, the Castrilla, the military, the heroes appear always fighting. Again, there is a journey, there is many proofs, 12 proofs, there is a development at the end, and we can say they go to heaven. Okay. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, there is more a prophet that is leading by behaving by rules. But the Indian journey, you talk about the infinitive, they go back and forth. You don't explain too much the Indian journey, I mean, inside. It looks like, for me, it looks like they know immediately that there is some connection between me and Parabrahma or the infinite, and I can unite, I can even not unite. I am also Parabrahma, I can have this journey. I can be a yogi, I can be a hermit, or I can be another way. But this kind of journey that has been in India for so long, I'm interested if you can say a little more.
Okay. You see, the Greek heroes live only once. When you're listening to the prophet's journey, you're talking about one life, one chance, one goal, one direction, one way of being. So in the Greek hero, you see a sense of urgency. There's a sense of urgency. There's destination, goal. If I get or I don't get. So there is this yearning. The moment you come to Indian stories, human, whatever you achieve, there is no destination. There is no goal. There is therefore no urgency. What you seek is meaning, understanding. Because this is the world which is talking about impermanence and change. Nothing lasts forever, not even death. No achievement lasts forever. Somebody will break your achievements and become better than you. This is the world of infinite, This is the world of immortality. This is the world of impermanence. All you can do is get the meaning. Now when you see the avatar, Ram, he doesn't go through any emotional transformation in the Ramayana. People around him discover the infinite because he is always at peace. People around him are fragmented and he is always at peace. So there's no achievement. Ram achieves nothing. But we are told the story. The tragedy is that we are told, the storytellers have turned these into Greek epics and say the purpose of Ram's life was to kill Ravan. That's how they tell the stories. That's the problem with the storytelling tradition. The traditional storytelling is he knew this is what's going to happen. So it's always talking about play acting. They'll always use the word Leela. He knows it, but he's playing the game of fighting the war and killing him. Because how can you kill someone who's never going to die? Because we are all immortal. So there's no killing because there is no death, there is rebirth. It's just moving from one classroom to the next classroom. He who sees everything will not kill it because he knows it's just a change. So let me explain it a slightly different way. Or if you look at Krishna, Krishna does not undergo through any transformation. Everybody around him may or may not transform.
Here the heroes, Ram and Krishna, already are avatar, already are heroes.
Yes.
Already, there is no journey. They are already fulfillment. They are already.
See, the problem is with the word, when you use the word hero,
I mean,
we are talking about change in person or change in society. When we use the word avatar, this doesn't apply. And the problem is people have used these words as synonymous, which you see if you see James Cameron's Avatar. So let me explain in a different way. What happens is Avatar says everything changes, does not need your intervention or help. So you don't need to change the world is changing on its own, which means activists have no role. It's very disturbing, right? It's taken away meaning from you. All you can do is understand and do what basically feed others. Feed. Yagna. Yoga. You see the hungry? Feed. But you expect them to feed you back? Not going to happen.
But the understanding the jnana in India becoming very late, 2,000 years ago, or it's also a path that is as older as the other ones. Because, of course, when you understand that your nature is the same as Krishna or Ram, but you really, truly understand means that you really realize this is Ram, no hero, no avatar, whatever you want to call it. They don't need to be, well. But the question, meanwhile, you reach that, it looked like also in India talk about a journey, about some transformations and tapas to do something to get there.
You see, this is the last 100 years, people have been trying to explain Indian stories using templates from Greece. You see, in the 1930s and 40s, when people started translating these books, people would look at Iliad, Odyssey, and say, oh, we also have Ramayana and Mahabharata, and they would write the stories in the Greek style. And therefore, confusion has happened. Let me give you an example. Superhero is a small man who becomes great, powerful. Avatar is a big or infinite who becomes finite to help the finite discover the infinite. So the word for it is uddhara, uplift. So the infinite becomes the finite so that the finite discovers the infinite. This is very different. When you discover the infinite, what will happen? The world doesn't change. There will be still violence, there will be still property disputes, but you will be wiser. You will recognize you are the wise teacher surrounded by foolish students. Now what do? Do you get angry with the foolish student? Oh, you are an idiot. Then you are not wise. You will help them, but they may not receive your help. You will do yagna, you will feed, and they will slap you. Now will you get angry because they didn't ask you to feed them? You fed them of your own volition. So you keep quiet. They'll still slap you. So you run away. They'll keep slapping you. What do? What is the use of wisdom? What do you do with that wisdom? Because do you want to convert them, change them, transform them, or let them be on there? One day they will discover. Because there's no hurry. What's the sense of urgency? That's the idea which they're trying to communicate. That when wisdom comes, life will not change. You will just look at life differently. You'll handle life differently. You'll handle your relationships differently. You will deal with fortune and misfortune differently. So Ram is at peace when he is in the palace. He is at peace when he is not in the palace. This is, because life, you have no control over your life. Things happen around you, you do what you can. All you have control over is yagna. The feeding, the expectations, the feeding, the expectations, the feeding, the expectations. That's the only thing that you have that makes you human. If you don't feed the other, you're not human. If you don't deal with your expectations and you don't expect, you're not human at all. Expectations will always be there. That's what makes us living creatures. How do you deal with it is where wisdom comes.
We have time for one more question.
So my question was, you said that there is no destination, right? But in yoga and in the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, we talk about liberation and moksha. Isn't that the destination then?
See, if you look at it as destination, then it is realizing that you're already there. That's not a destination. See, destination is it's language. Because you are like then the developed nations who have to go nowhere else. Have you heard the word developed and developing? So, developed is finished. Nowhere else to go. Tell me, what is the destination in infinity? Where will you put the marker? See, when you use words like, you're Indian, right? Are you familiar with the word Ananta? So, Ananta Vasudeva. The Ananta means infinity. What is the goalpost of infinity? Ask any mathematician. They will never be able to give you a goalpost. So destination demands a goalpost. So infinity as a concept is a very, very disturbing concept, because infinity without one remains infinite. Infinite divided by one, infinite divided by infinite. Have you heard Purna Vidam? Purna Vidam, this is what it means. From the infinite comes the infinite. So, this is the concept at a philosophical level. They're continuously using that, we want to change the world, but the world continues without us. If we were to disappear at this moment, it's like a mango tree saying, one day I will stop producing mangoes. I will show the forest. We are mango trees who take ourselves too seriously.
Do we have time for one more? She raised her hand. Your last question.
Okay, so when you were talking about Rama and how he was always at peace, whether be him being in a palace or in forest, I don't really quite understand what was Rama's story trying to teach us, because I also understood that maybe Rama was also suffering when he separated from Sita and Sita went on to live in the forest, and times when he had to question the chastity of Sita when the masses were. So what was Rama trying to do there, and why did he live a life of a loner, and what was he trying to preach at that time, and why did he end up making
What's
his
the assumption
family
in your
suffer?
question?
My understanding is that I don't understand if Rama was really at peace, because I think when you started the speech, you said that Rama and Krishna are the ones who are not fragmented. But then when I look at the life of Rama, I also feel that even he was fragmented. And then I don't understand what was he trying to teach in his entire life of a king, basically.
See, that's why the word is Leela, right? Play acting. The thing is, we are assuming these books are, you are told to look at a person's life in its entirety. And you see this entire life of a character. In the entire Ramayana, Ram is not allowed to make a single choice. And Sita makes 5 choices. So it's the story of a man who cannot make a choice and a woman who makes choices. And they have to fall in love with each other. And he is never, ever, ever going to change his ways. He can't. So he's a caged bird, and she's a bird outside the cage. And it's a love story between the two. And even God cannot break the cage. And that's the Ramayana. It is telling you, even he cannot, he knows, and he cannot break the cage. You have to live that life where he cannot break the cage. And the whole story is of a man who is inside the cage and a woman outside the cage. She comes inside the cage, tries to pull him out, again, but he's always outside the cage and he's inside the cage. He is in culture, trapped in culture, and she's nature, outside culture. And that's the story. You want to change the world, but you can't. How do you love a man who will always be caged? How do you love a woman who will always be independent? That's, if you wish to see it that way, it's your darshan. Nobody is telling you anything, it is what you receive. The statue in the temple doesn't tell you anything, it is what you receive. The moment you say, this story preaches, it has become a parable. The moment it becomes a parable, it is not itihasa. Then it's a fable, it's a parable. Then it stops being itihasa. Itihasa is a story which is just saying, this is the way it happened. They are not telling you anything. No, Mahabharata doesn't tell you anything. It just gives you various arguments and all that. You figure it out. The moment somebody says it teaches you something, he's lying. So you should be careful of preaching. Yeah. Yeah?
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
What a wonderful story. So we have a little reception over in the other studio. There's some cake and drinks, and we'll set the table up over there. And I know people have brought their own books, and we have a few books of yours.
Sure.
And you'll be happy to sign them for people.
Sure.
And thank you guys so much. I mean, this was really wonderful, and it's like an honor to have you here.
Thank you
so much.
If you miss anything during these last 2 hours, it will be posted on YouTube, and you can watch it again and over and over and over.
Exactly. Review it. Look at it. So, thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you.